Okay, so today we're diving into this YouTube video I saw, and this entrepreneur, Ted Carr, he claims he can help you unlock like $50,000 a month online.
Wow.
Yeah, right, 50,000 a month.
That's a bold claim.
It is a bold claim,
Yeah.
and I know what you're probably thinking right now listening to this.
Yeah.
Is this another one of those get rich quick schemes?
Right.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
But you know what? Even if it is, like, why not figure out what this guy is doing? Just dissect the system, even if we're a little skeptical.
Absolutely. And I think whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or you're just starting out, dissecting these systems, even the ones that have kind of these big outlandish claims, they can be super insightful just to understand, the mechanics of how online business models work,
Mm-hmm.
particularly when we're talking about, recurring revenue.
Yeah. And I think is really interesting about this one is that his approach is like surprisingly simple, at least from how he describes it,
Okay.
like in a two-step funnel,
Yep.
and then just set it and forget it.
Okay.
At least that's what he claims, but that's why we're here.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll see, if his level of success is achievable or repeatable for everyone.
Right.
But the principles he's outlining, I think, are definitely things that can be applied more broadly, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And so the first thing that he talks about is being like a content machine.
Okay.
He's got this philosophy of post everywhere, repurpose, repeat.
Right.
So, on the surface, that sounds like, not a terrible idea if you're trying to get your name out there.
Yeah.
But doesn't that kind of run the risk of sacrificing quality for quantity?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a classic content marketing dilemma.
Right.
On the one hand, consistency is key,
Yeah.
right? Like putting yourself out there consistently across different platforms. That's how you build visibility. That's how you begin to establish yourself as, an expert or whatever your particular field is.
Sure.
Um, but, spreading yourself too thin can lead to what generic content is,
Mm-hmm.
content that doesn't really connect with anyone.
Right. It's like that old saying, jack of all trades, master of none.
Exactly. Yeah, it's about finding that balance.
Yeah.
Whether that's strategically choosing a few key platforms where, your target audience is hanging out, or maybe even considering outsourcing some of that content creation, if that makes sense, for your business.
Yeah.
The key is sustainability, right?
Yeah.
Like, can you keep this up without burning yourself out?
Right.
Yeah.
So then he goes on and he talks about this freebie funnel.
Okay.
So it's a two-step process that he says is really the heart of his strategy,
Okay.
right? So first he offers something valuable for free,
Okay.
right? So this could be like a cheat sheet, a template, a mini course, something like that.
Yeah.
And in exchange for that freebie, he asks for your email address.
Right.
And then as soon as you're on his email list, bam, he hits you with a promotion for his paid Skool community on the thank you page.
Right.
So it's like, here's a little taste.
A little taste, yeah.
Now, are you ready for the whole feast?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, this works for a couple of reasons.
Okay.
First of all, it leverages the power of reciprocity,
Okay.
right? Like you give a little something, people are more likely to give a little something back. In this case, their email address.
Yeah.
And boom, you've opened up that line of communication.
Right. And this is where his 365-day email sequence comes into play.
Wow.
365 days.
That's a lot of emails.
That's a whole year of emails. So, he must really believe in the power of email marketing.
He does. And you know what? He's not wrong.
Yeah.
Like email marketing is still one of the most effective ways to build a loyal audience and eventually, get them to buy from you.
Yeah. So what's in these emails?
Right.
Does he just open up his email and be like, oh, what am I going to write about today?
Right. No, not at all. This is where Carr gets strategic.
Okay.
He focuses on three main types of emails.
Okay.
Client wins problem-solving content, and then emails that directly address objections.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Okay.
Break those down for me.
Okay, so the client win emails,
Yeah.
these are all about social proof.
Okay. He shares success stories from his students or his clients, and it's basically like, look, my methods work,
Gotcha.
right? The problem-solving emails, these position him as the expert.
Right.
The guide offering solutions to the pain points that his target audience is facing.
Okay.
And then the objection-busting emails, well, they do exactly what they say. They tackle those doubts and hesitations that people might have head on.
Okay, that's actually pretty clever when you think about it.
It is.
Because by addressing those objections up front, he's kind of like, disarming people a little bit and
Yeah.
building that trust
Right.
so they feel more confident about maybe eventually investing in his services.
Exactly. It all comes back to building that, and trust factor.
Right.
People buy from people they trust.
And Carr's using email marketing to nurture those relationships over time.
So we've got the content machine, the freebie funnel, the email marketing strategy.
Right.
And it seems like at the center of all of this is Skool.
Right.
And he describes it as more than just a platform. He calls it a community.
Yeah, it's interesting because this whole concept of paid communities
Yeah.
is becoming more and more popular in the online business world.
Right.
It's about creating that sense of belonging, offering exclusive content, and really providing that extra layer of support that you wouldn't necessarily get from free resources.
Right. But here's the thing. He takes a surprisingly hands-off approach
Really?
to his Skool community. He actually calls his free Skool group self-managing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's kind of interesting.
It is interesting.
Because how realistic is that set it and forget it approach when
right.
it comes to building a truly engaged community?
Right, because usually you need that community manager there to kind of keep things going.
Right. It seems counterintuitive because you would think that a successful community manager is in there all the time, moderating conversations, making sure people are, getting along and stuff.
Right, and cultivating a certain vibe.
Exactly.
Answering people's questions and really making it an engaging experience.
Right.
So this is where things get a little interesting with this whole Skool peel thing.
Yeah.
Because, his hands-off approach seems to contradict this idea that you need to be actively building the community.
Right, exactly. It's like, can a community truly thrive
Right.
if it's just left to its own devices?
Yeah. And you need that shared interest.
Yeah.
Like a common goal to
Right.
bring people together. And in this case, it's his teaching and this whole online business thing.
Right.
But if the focus shifts too much towards making a sale,
Yeah.
it can create this weird vibe.
Right.
Where it's you're being sold to
Right.
instead of it being we're all in this together.
Like you're just a number,
Right. Exactly.
not a real person with real goals and stuff.
Yeah. And that's not to say that paid communities can't be successful, because they absolutely can be.
Sure.
There are a ton of them out there that are killing it.
Right.
But, there's a balance, right? You need to be providing amazing value.
Yeah.
You need to be fostering genuine connections.
Yeah.
And making your members feel heard.
So it sounds like it's definitely doable, but you got to be smart about it.
Absolutely. And I think transparency is key, right? Be upfront about your business model.
Yeah.
Be upfront about what you offer for free versus what requires a purchase.
Okay.
And then over-deliver on those promises.
Right. It goes back to that whole and trust factor.
Exactly. You got to build that trust before you can ask for the sale.
Right. And it seems like that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
With the free content, the email sequence, even that free Skool group.
Exactly. It's all very strategic.
Yeah. So speaking of sales, let's talk about how he actually transitions people from that free Skool group to his higher priced coaching program.
Okay.
Because he claims a 90% close rate.
Wow.
Which, come on.
90%?
90%, that seems a little
That's high.
high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to wonder about that.
Yeah. I mean, we can't completely discount it. Right.
Maybe he's referring to a very specific segment of his audience.
Right.
Or maybe there are other factors at play.
Yeah. We're not seeing the full picture.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
So we have to take it with a grain of salt.
Of course.
But even if we put the actual percentage aside,
Yeah.
what's really interesting is the psychology behind his approach.
Okay.
Right. So he talks about starting with these DM conversations.
Okay.
Then having these quick 15-minute calls.
Right.
And then if they seem like a good fit, he'll invite them to these longer strategy sessions.
Okay.
So it's this gradual process of building a relationship and showcasing his expertise before he even mentions the high ticket program.
So it's not just hey, buy my thing.
Right, exactly. It's
Right.
more subtle than that.
It's a much softer approach. Yeah.
So he's establishing himself as someone who genuinely wants to help,
Right.
who understands their challenges, and maybe even has some of the solutions.
Exactly.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
People are much more likely to invest in something
Right.
if they feel like they're understood
Absolutely.
and supported.
That makes sense.
But then the question is, what happens to the people who can't afford that high-ticket program?
Right. Because not everybody can.
Right. And he actually has a strategy for that.
Okay. Interesting.
And it's a little interesting.
Okay.
He calls it the deposit strategy.
The deposit strategy.
So he reframes his $49 a month Skool membership as a deposit
Okay.
towards this high-ticket coaching program.
Interesting. Okay.
So instead of seeing it as the cheaper option,
Right.
it's like a stepping stone.
It's a way to like lock in a discounted rate for when
Okay.
they're ready to commit to the bigger program.
Interesting. It's a clever marketing tactic.
It is.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
It plays on people's aspirations.
Yeah.
That desire to invest in themselves and their future.
Yeah, like I want to improve myself, but I can't afford the big thing.
Right.
But I can put down a deposit
Exactly.
so that later I can...
And it's framed as an investment,
Right.
not as, I'm trying to get more money out of you.
Exactly. It's very clever.
But we have to acknowledge the potential downsides of this framing.
Right, of course.
Right. Like, is it creating unrealistic expectations?
Yeah.
Does it take advantage of that desire for transformation,
Right.
even if someone isn't financially prepared for that higher price program?
It's a fine line.
It is a fine line.
It really makes you think about the intention behind it.
Yeah.
Is it truly about supporting people's growth,
Right.
even at a lower price point? Or is it just a way to like create this sense of urgency?
Right.
Of, like, don't miss out.
Don't miss out. Get in now while you still can.
Exactly.
Yeah, those are important questions.
They are.
And honestly, I think it's up to each individual to really consider.
Right? Yeah.
Do your research.
Yeah.
Look at your budget
Right.
and decide, does this type of framing resonate with me?
Yeah.
Or does it raise some red flags for me?
And this is where I think the value of a community,
Yeah.
even one with like a paid aspect,
Right.
can be really helpful.
Totally.
It's about having those open and honest conversations, sharing different perspectives.
Right.
And,
Accountability.
yeah, exactly. Holding each other accountable.
Absolutely. A healthy community encourages critical thinking.
Yes.
It's about questioning these assumptions,
Right.
challenging each other,
Right.
finding that balance between pursuing success
Mm-hmm.
and, maintaining your ethics.
Right. It's not just about blindly following someone's system.
Exactly.
It's about understanding why,
Yes.
understanding the potential pitfalls,
Right.
and then making those informed decisions
Right.
that feel right for you.
Love it. Yeah. And speaking of, kind of finding that balance,
Okay.
let's circle back to his use of workshops,
Okay.
because this is another kind of revenue stream that he's got going on.
Right. And I mean, it's smart.
Yeah.
When you think about it, he's offering like a low-priced entry point.
Right.
So people can kind of like experience his teaching style a little bit.
Right. Get a taste of it.
Yeah, get a
Yeah,
taste and
yeah.
get some value without having to like, shell out thousands of dollars for the big program.
Exactly.
But it's not just about giving them a taste of his teaching.
Right.
It's also strategic because he bundles a free trial of his Skool community
Sorry.
with the workshop purchase.
Okay. So it's like you're more likely to get sucked in.
Yeah, and it's like that whole try before you buy thing.
Right, yeah.
But instead of a product, it's access to his community.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And his expertise.
And we can't overlook the power of workshops, too, to like really showcase your expertise.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So by offering a really high quality, valuable workshop,
Right.
he's building that credibility.
A win-win.
Right? It's a win-win.
Yeah.
People get valuable information. They get a glimpse into his world.
Right.
And he gets to nurture those potential clients.
Totally. Yeah. And I think it's important to acknowledge, not everyone's going to agree with every aspect of his approach,
Oh, yeah. Of course not.
especially when it comes to that deposit framing.
Right.
Or the whole like 90% close rate thing.
Sure.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
We're not here to say whether his methods are right or wrong.
Right. This isn't about him.
This is about just like analyzing it
This is about you.
and like thinking
We're
critically.
listening right now.
Yeah. About like what works for you.
Take what resonates, leave what doesn't.
Exactly. Yeah. And one thing I thought was really interesting was how much he talked about providing value.
Yeah, he does. Like throughout this whole video, he's talking about giving value, giving value, giving
It's
value.
the foundation of everything.
It's like the core
Yeah.
of his whole approach, it seems like.
Totally. And I think that's a really important takeaway for any entrepreneur, any business owner,
Right.
whether you're selling coaching services or courses or physical products. Like the key is to focus on providing value.
Because at the end of the day, people can spot inauthenticity from a mile away.
Oh, totally.
Like if you're just in it for the quick buck,
They'll sniff you out.
yeah, they'll sniff you out. They know.
Yeah.
But if you genuinely like want to help people
Right.
to make a difference, to improve their lives,
Yeah, that shines through.
yeah, shines through.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think as we wrap up this deep dive
Yeah.
into Ted Carr's world,
It's a trip.
it is a trip, right?
Yeah.
Here's a final thought I'll leave you with.
Okay.
In a world that's like, you know, overly saturated
Yeah.
with online courses and memberships and
Wow.
digital products and masterminds and all this stuff,
All promising the moon.
that all promise the moon, yeah.
Right.
Like, what does it really mean to build a business that not only generates revenue,
Right.
but also, like, genuinely makes a difference?
That's the question, right?
That's the question.
Like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's not just about financial success.
Right.
It's about building something meaningful,
Yeah.
something that leaves a positive impact.
I love it.
Food for thought.
Food for thought.